For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:05, welcome to today's Entrepreneur, presented by Fuller Landau, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with Josh Miller of Fuller Landau. Hey, Josh.
Hello.
So tonight on the show, we're talking travel.
Well, you know, spring is in the air. People are looking to escape maybe after they do their taxes and get all their refunds back from the lovely government, old and new.
Ah, yes, I should get on that and do my taxes. Joining us in studio from Vision Travel Solutions is Joel Ostrov, our profile this evening on today's Entrepreneur. Joel, welcome to CJD.
Thanks so much. Thank you for having me.
So the easiest question of the night, tell us about yourself and about Vision Travel Solutions.
Well, today I'm proud to say that Vision Travel Solutions is the largest Canadian-owned travel management company. And we compete in a market that is globally dominated by three major players, American Express, Carlson Wagon Lee, and the Hogg Robinson Group. All foreign-owned, all controlled outside of Canada. So we're really pleased that we have a Canadian solution for corporate Canada.
Now, when you say solution, travel solutions, what exactly does that mean? I mean, people, you're a travel agency by most people's definition, but what does that mean? What kind of services do you offer?
Well, today, in the world of corporate travel, what you're really talking about is a fully managed program where you're going into a company and managing their day-to-day travel from A to Z, including their online booking tools, including their management reporting, their benchmarking, comparing themselves to other companies of similar sizes. So it's really a full-blown management program, and hence the new moniker TMC, or Travel Management Company.
So when companies are really trying to look to be cost effective or manage their resources appropriately, it's not just booking trips, you're really trying to help them run that aspect of their business.
Absolutely. You're there to negotiate with industry suppliers, the airlines, the hotel chains, the car rental companies. You're there to act as an in-between, the corporation and the suppliers, in order to secure the best possible fares when it comes to airlines and hotel rates and car rental rates for your corporate clients.
Now, all sizes of corporations, doesn't matter if they're large or they're small.
Absolutely. We really service clients from 5 to 25,000 employees.
That's pretty big. Now, of course, you also do personal. I mean, there's corporate side, but I presume you also deal in personal vacations and travel.
Yes, we do. As a matter of fact, Vision Travel is one of the world's largest members of Virtuoso. Virtuoso is a buying group of luxury products, like Four Seasons hotels, for example, or Silver Seas cruises. And we offer that service to the employees and the owners of our corporate clientele.
Excellent. Now, how did you get into this? When did Vision start?
Interestingly enough, it was my love of airplanes that started me in the travel business back in 1964. I went on my first flight, and I just fell in love with jet airliners, and I established a collection of model aircraft from all over the world, and that's really the passion that led me to open my travel agency with a dear friend of mine, Cliff Besner, back in 1977. We opened an agency called Partners in Travel, and we built it to a very nice size of about 32 employees, and until we decided to merge it with others in the late 90s, 1999 to be exact.
Now, when you first started, was there competition out there? Was there really something missing in the marketplace? What got you to, I mean, other than your love and passion for airplanes, and I won't ask why you didn't become a pilot, but why go into this business?
Interestingly enough, I did consider becoming an airline pilot, but at that time there was a requirement for certain eyesight, and as you can see by my glasses, my eyesight didn't cut it. So I decided to go into the next best thing, and I also love to travel. So I combined my love of airplanes with my love of travel. You asked the question, what was missing in the marketplace? And in the late 70s, business travel was just really a new industry. And we decided that was going to be our area of specialty. We were going to concentrate on business travel, and it turned out to be a good idea.
I was about to ask, how did you identify that particular niche within the business travel market? Well, what clues did you have to suggest that there was demand for this type of corporate service?
Honestly, it was, I guess, coming from an entrepreneurial family. I had many people surrounding me who were starting to travel for business, going to the Far East for merchandise. People in the needle trade were starting to go to the Far East. Trips to New York and Chicago and Los Angeles. It was becoming the norm, but just beginning. And we said, Cliff and I one day looked looked at each other when we decided to go into the business and said, let's concentrate on this area because this is going to be big.
Now, you started in the 70s. We're now 2014. The amount of changes in this industry must be astronomical. I mean, between technology and availability of services, modes of travel, what's been some of the biggest changes and maybe some of the biggest hurdles that you had to go through?
Interestingly enough, one of the biggest changes for us was when the airlines decided to cap commissions in the late 90s. And that's really when we realized that the only way we were going to be able to continue to be successful and grow our business was to become much larger than we were. And that's when we decided to merge our agency with two others here in Quebec and partner with two agencies in Ontario had the same vision, if you will. And that's why we gave up our name of Partners in Travel, as did the others, and we formed the Vision 2000 Travel Group, which came into being on April 1st, 2000.
And technology, I presume, plays a big role as well. I mean, everybody's online. We were talking about that earlier, but certainly in-house, when you're trying to make sure you get the best price for your customer and looking in so many different places, technology must have changed drastically.
Technology has been huge. And that was another inspiration, shall we say, or motivation for doing the merger, because the costs to develop the technologies that were necessary to compete with what was becoming the internet, the Expedia's, Travelocity of this world, were huge. So by putting these agencies together, we had the resources to invest in the technology that allows us to be extremely competitive and actually provide the best of both worlds, the internet and the online world, along with the bricks and mortar full service model.
Now, you mentioned you kind of alluded to revenue streams. Certain commissions were getting capped. What is the typical different or various revenue streams for a travel management company like yours?
Actually, the revenues are coming from all different areas. We have obviously our transaction fee model, which is the full service model for corporations to manage their entire travel. The major suppliers in the industry do still provide revenues for market share. So although there's the commission model is not what it was back in the 80s and 90s, there's still opportunities to earn revenue from airlines if you give them the support that they're looking for.
Like volume incentives.
Exactly.
Any other? I mean, is that really where the primary sources are?
Those are the two primary sources. Of course, there's still commissions from hotels and cars. It's not a major revenue source, but it certainly helps the bottom line.
Now, you mentioned earlier the competition, the online competition that is no doubt out there and prevalent. How do you find that you're able to compete with that, whether it's on price, whether it's on information availability? Where do you stand and where do you push your services on that?
Well, Josh, I got to tell you, that is the biggest misconception in the travel industry today, is that the full service travel agencies like Vision, are a dying breed. Everybody should book on the internet because it's cheaper. And in reality, it's just not. And Topaz International, which is one of the largest research companies and management consulting firms in the U.S. that specifically analyzes this area, has done study after study since the advent of the internet and has proven over and over again that a good, or should I say a great, travel management company like Vision will, over a course of an annual basis, a company spend, will save a company anywhere from 40 to 50% than letting their people just do their own thing online.
Where the biggest savings come from? Because you have a wider, I guess, a spread or a wider view of what's out there?
Exactly. Because our technology, for example, we have technology in place, we call it Visionware, where we can scrape websites about 40 to 50 at a time. So in the time that our agents are actually researching a fare for you, this is working in the background. And it is investigating fares that are coming from Expedia, from Travelocity, from Orbitz, FareBuzz, all of these aggregators that are out there, and we're offering the best of all those worlds.
Joel Ostrov, our guest from Vision Travel Solutions on today's Entrepreneur, 7:15.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:19 on CJAD. Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar, along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller, and our guest this evening is Joel Ostrov of Vision Travel Solutions. And we're talking about travel and deals, particularly when it comes to, do you go with a travel agent for these type of corporate solutions, or do you go online? And Joel, you were saying, I think, to the surprise of many listeners, that it's not necessarily beneficial to always go online. So tell us about maybe the contacts and that you developed over the years that allow you to sort of compete with these online properties that really don't have any brick and mortar expenses.
Absolutely. Well, the contacts are developed over years, obviously, and being the size that we are today gives us access and allows us the ability to work with some senior executives at the major airlines. You know, I pride myself on our relationship with Air Canada, our national carrier, where we've been supporters really from day one. Because in the days when we first began, you had to be sponsored by an airline, and Air Canada sponsored our membership in IATA, the International Air Transport Association. And obviously, I never forgot that support. And today we have really, really super contacts with Air Canada, and we're able to really benefit our clients with those connections.
When the online I guess aggregators, the Expedia, the Orbitz, and all this of the world came to be, and I know we're talking quite a while ago, did you find that as a threat, or did you really use it to your advantage?
Well, I must admit, early on, we did consider it a threat, and then we realized we could embrace this technology and use it to our clients' advantage. And I think in the area of individual travel, if you know exactly where you're going and you want to just do something really, really quick, yes, Expedia can be a great solution. But where a company like Vision Travel Solutions comes into play is we have the online world. We have that solution for our clients. We do provide the finest in online booking tools for our clients. But yet they have the advantage that if something goes awry, and we all know about this winter and the amount of snowstorms, we had more canceled flight this winter in the history of air travel. And the amount of times that our clients were able to reach our consultants, both through our online mobile app, which allows instant access to their consultants to be rebooked, to be protected. Whereas when you book with the online agencies, what we call the OTAs, you have absolutely nowhere to go. You're on your own.
Now, is this something that when they came out that you had a bunch of employees that were worried they were going to lose their job? I mean, how do you reassure people that your vision, and it's a great term to use, even though it's your company, that your vision will truly prevail?
Well, actually, everybody who's ever worked for me knows I'm the eternal optimist. And there was never a doubt in my mind that we would find a way to use the internet and this new technology to our advantage. It was just a matter of changing our mindset, changing with the times, embracing the technology, and making it work for our clients. You know, I just want to add one interesting anecdote. There's a very major online news provider for the travel agency community and for the traveling public called T-News. And they wrote an article last fall called The Dark Days of the Online Agencies, because they peaked about 2 or 3 years ago in their volume, and we've seen a steady decline in their numbers, and again an increase back in the bricks and mortar full service environment.
You know, Dan, we've had so many entrepreneurs on the show that don't always see threats in the right way, but clearly, you know, when there's something out there, an entrepreneur, a successful one, is going to take that threat and turn it into his own opportunity. Turn it so that he markets himself and has the right processes in place to make sure his business is going to fly. And when we come back, talk a little more about marketing and how he made sure the public knew exactly what Vision Travel was about to offer.
Joel Ostrov, our guest from Vision Travel Solutions on today's Entrepreneur, 723. 725, welcome back to today's Entrepreneur. Joel Ostrov is our guest from Vision Travel Solutions, and Josh, we're talking a bit about marketing right now.
And you know, we were really addressing the online and reinventing, and it's not just about people going online and getting it, and it's not about seeing online business as a threat to the travel agency. It's really making the most of it. But there had to be, I presume, some type of marketing thought process over the years for Vision Travel that's maybe worked for you, or maybe there really wasn't very much.
The truth is there wasn't very much, Josh. Most of our clients have come from either word of mouth, referrals, or successfully answering RFPs, requests for proposals, which has become the norm in corporate travel today, where a company will go to market, send out their RFP to 5 or 6 of the major players in the country or in their region, and then you usually are shortlisted, and if you're fortunate enough to win the business, you win the business. And then it's in those environments where you talk about your online solutions, your duty of care products, your things that make you different from everybody else.
So really, it's being in front of your ultimate customer that you're really, I guess, pushing your wares or marketing yourself. Does it become then word of mouth that your growth comes from?
It's a combination of word of mouth, and in the Quebec market, we have 3 business development people who are constantly on the road talking about vision travel. In the rest of the country, there are another 7, so we have 4 in the Toronto market, and then the others are in Western Canada.
And where do they speak? Like where do they address the groups?
Basically, it's through the organizations. We're members of the 3 major organizations, the ACT, which is the Alliance of Corporate Travel Executives, the CCTA, which is the Canadian Corporate Travel Association, and then there's the GBTA, the Global Business Travel Association. Vision Travel will always be present at every one of those events. We have major presence. We have a beautiful booth that we take from event to event, and we talk about our company at those events.
Now, Vision Travel wasn't always Vision Travel. A lot of people around town know it as Vision 2000. It's only recently become Vision Travel Solutions, as I understand it. How did you deal with that rebranding?
Well, it was a major project that began about a year and a half ago when we realized that the 2000 moniker was no longer had any cachet, if you will. And also the reason we had added 2000 in the first place is because we were having some trademark difficulties back in 2000 when we wanted to form the company Vision Travel. The reason Vision was chosen was because it's a bilingual word. We're Vision Voyage here in Quebec and Vision Travel in the rest of the country. And we were required by the trademark authorities to add something to the name. So at the time, the new millennium was upon us. So
Y2K.
Yeah, there you go. So we chose 2000. Since then, the company that sort of fought us on the trademark issue went by the wayside, as did many of our smaller competitors, and we were able to get a trademark on Vision Travel in the fall of just last year. Actually.
Was it a major undertaking? I mean, did you outsource the rebranding or to maybe a marketing agency? What was the process like?
Absolutely. We hired a marketing agency with offices in both Montreal and Toronto. In Toronto, they're called Punch, and here in Montreal, they're called Bicom, and they work sort of together on this project. We didn't just change the name, Josh, and we also changed the whole look of Vision. If you look at our logo today, it's much more youthful. It really speaks to the world today of travel.
Now, was it a long process?
Just a little bit over a year. Took us to get it all done. A lot of the time was waiting really for the trademark, and while the trademark was being processed, the advertising agency was presenting us with different looks, and then we finally selected the look you see today.
Did you involve any of your team in this decision, or was it really something from the top that you said, you know what, we're going to take the lead, we know it's the right thing to do, and go from there?
Well, we have 2 vice presidents in marketing, one based here in Montreal, Lara Lazar, and the other one based in Toronto, Stephen Smith. Together, they really spearheaded the project, and then the 3 senior executives, myself with Brian Robertson and Aaron Roos, made the final choice.
Lots to talk about rebranding, but when we come back from the break, maybe a little bit more on that. And, of course, what you mentioned before about taking a whole bunch of partners and bringing it down to just a few.
Joel Ostrov, our guest from Vision Travel Solutions on today's Entrepreneur at 7:30.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:36 on today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller, and our guest this evening, Josh, is Joel Ostrov from Vision Travel Solutions, and they cater to I guess a more particular corporate subset of the travel market. And Joel, what we were talking about marketing, and how do you sort of project yourself to your customers? Is there an underlying philosophy behind Vision? Are there any sort of brand pillars or sort of guidelines that you like to follow?
The guidelines and the pillars go like this: travel your way, when you work with vision, it's not a cookie cutter. It's not all vanilla. It's whatever flavor you like. And what we subscribe to, most importantly for me, is a win-win-win. And Josh, you and I talked about that, a win-win-win philosophy. And what I refer to there is the preferred partnerships that we have with industry suppliers and our customers. So it's a three-way, and everybody has to win. You know, I feel too many entrepreneurs always want to have the winning edge, and it's just not the way we do business at Vision Travel.
Really, what goes around comes around. Really, that's what you're subscribing to.
Absolutely.
Now, it takes probably an excellent team, an excellent, well-trained team with the right culture to make all this work. You mentioned at the outset you started off small. You were just about 30 employees. How many employees are you? How many people are on your team at Vision Travel today?
Well, here in Montreal, we're close to 200, and in the rest of the country, there's another 400. So we're just under 600 people today.
Now, that's quite something to manage from a growth aspect, certainly going from 30 or 32 that you mentioned earlier to jump to the many hundreds. How did you manage it? At what point do you go from informal to formal? At what point do you feel like you maybe even lose some of the reins?
To be honest with you, we've kept the same philosophy with regards to our people that we've had since day one. And it's a philosophy that I read about really in a book by Tom Peters called A Passion for Excellence. And if you really instill in people and empower them to do the best that they can do, you're gonna be successful. And we have not had to change the philosophy. Yes, there's more obviously guidelines. We work with a policy and procedures manual that in the early days we didn't need, but with this many people today, obviously we do. But really, the overlying atmosphere that's created within Vision Travel is one that the senior management team is approachable. We're there, and we're there to encourage people to be as good as they can be.
Is it difficult to maintain a culture throughout the entire organization? And certainly there must be some differences between the Quebec side, the Ontario side, maybe even the West Coast. How do you maintain a similar feel and culture throughout?
There are some differences, to be quite honest, especially the fact that in the Quebec region, we're all located under one roof. So we're 180 of us. We see each other every day, and we work together very closely. The rest of the country is scattered. We're scattered in another 15 offices. So the largest one being in Toronto, where there's just under 100 people. The rest of them are offices with 10, 12, 14 people. So it is a little bit different. However, we meet once a year. We have a Power of Vision conference where the entire teams from the entire region of Canada get together, and we share our stories, and we make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to the whole human relations.
Speaking of vision and making sure everybody's on the same page, you mentioned earlier that you were numerous partners. At one point, you started off with a buddy or two of yours, and then at some point you kind of added on. You were searching for volume and added on a few other players. How many partners were you at your peak?
Well, the Quebec market, we were 10 at one point. So when it came to 2004, when Destinations, etc., had joined us, and they were the fifth after Future Travel and Option Voyage and Centra Travel had joined us here. It became a little problematic, I must admit, in the boardroom.
I mean, too many chefs
Just
at that point?
Too many chefs, exactly. So we were faced with a situation where the business was extremely successful. We had accomplished what we wanted to in terms of the volume, and we had the volume necessary to compete against the three major global players. But decision-making became problematic.
Was it also when now, before we come back to the partners and kind of shedding some of them or becoming a lot more, I guess, useful or certainly everybody on one page, was it difficult bringing in these different companies into the one culture? I mean, each one of them on their own probably had their own ways, so to speak.
Absolutely. The problem really was, as we were assigned different responsibility within the organization, the people that were formerly reporting to one of the owners, say, of one of the joining agencies would tend to go to that particular person for a decision where that might not be their new responsibility. So when the opportunity presented itself in late 2005, because we were approached by one of the three major players to sell the business, the opportunity came that I was able to convinced the partners that I was the one to sell to, and went into the private equity world and was able to do a private equity buyout with BMO Capital in the late summer actually of 2006.
So really at one shot, you kind of took out several of your partners.
Basically 8 out of 10.
That's quite something. Now, was it a difficult sell to, I guess, the BMO equity capital market?
Actually, in 2006, this was 2 years before the Lehman Brothers collapse, and the private equity world had a lot of money to be thrown around, and they liked the vision story. They liked the fact that we were a Canadian solution for corporate Canada. So actually, I had 3 private equity firms bidding on the deal and selected BMO Capital because we needed a combination of mezzanine financing, which I knew nothing about before I began this project, and senior debt. So I worked the entire project with BMO. They turned out to be an amazing partner, and they stayed our partner until last year when we bought out their shares.
And were you nervous to go to the banks for help?
Yes, I was. It was a major undertaking, but I'm proud to say that we went through it successfully, and we're here today.
Was it difficult to find the right value, the right share price to buy out those 8 partners?
Well, that was what was easy, because the price was set by this other company that wanted to acquire us. So they had come to us with an offer, and really I just had to match the offer and then find the funds to pay them.
But that was just one of your partners. There were several others that may or may not have decided, or that was really set by him and everybody had to abide.
They liked the price.
So it just went down that easily, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
that decision was not that difficult. The difficult part was raising the money.
Raising money. Was it a long process from the time that you were kind of saw these 3 potential equity partners to the time you actually closed the deal?
Absolutely. It took from November 2005, and we closed on August 8th, 2006.
If you had to do it all over, I mean, was there one bit that you really learned from that you know, if you were going to buy out a partner again, would there be anything different from negotiating to professionals to whatever it might be?
Truthfully, no. It really went well. We were very fortunate. The timing was excellent. I don't think I could have done that deal 2 years later. Obviously, we all know what happened. The private equity markets just dried up. So the timing was right, and having not have to negotiate on price made it much easier than it would have been had that been a factor in the decision.
It sounds like you were very fortunate, and it was an amazing part of the story. And I also know that you have Ontario partners. You're the Quebec partner. I know there are some issues kind of cross-border, if you will, that are also very interesting to touch upon. And when we come back from the break, we're going to bring in Nick Moraitis, one of our tax partners, and we're going to talk a little bit about Quebec, running a business in Quebec or choosing a location, as well as, of course, a few of the ins and outs of when you're claiming travel expenses in your company, things you should kind of consider.
Joel Ostrov of Vision Travel Solutions, our guest this evening on today's Entrepreneur at 7:45.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Coming up to 7:50, today's Entrepreneur on CJAD 800. Our guest is Joel Ostrov of Vision Travel Solutions, and we welcome back Nick Moraitis, tax partner at Fuller Landau. Welcome back to the show, Nick.
Hi.
So it is tax time, and we're going to combine that with some of the issues that we brought up with Joel and the travel solutions company, particularly when it comes to doing business across the border.
Yeah, but before we get to the kind of Quebec and Ontario comparison of doing business, kind of just as we're talking about travel expenses, corporate travel expenses, and we all know, governments are broke, so they're sending in auditors, they're trying to get as much as they can. Nick, maybe you can kind of explain or give to the listener a bit of a challenge or things they should know about when they're claiming these corporate travel expenses.
This is particularly true for international travel. What we've been finding in various audits over the years is that you could have a copy of the hotel invoice, the airline ticket, the car rental if you have, You can have kept every single meal that you ate, including the tips, the cab rides, etc. That's all fine and dandy, and that passes the first test. The second test, which comes up especially for international travel, is what did you do there? Who did you see? What did you do? Why did you go there? One of the presumptions, unfortunately, is that if you've spent a week in Paris in the month of July, you didn't go there for business, you went there for personal. So what we recommend to people is keep copies of the documentation you received. If it was a convention or an exposition, keep the documentation. If you actually went to see clients or suppliers, keep the emails that must have gone back and forth between you and the target you were going to go see prior. You need that proof to say, this is why I went to Paris for X amount of days, and here's all the expenses to back it up.
And if you do lots by phone, well, then create the emails so you have it in black and white, because you might need the
That's right. And nowadays, actually, it's probably the other way around, is that the emails are far more than the phones. The other thing that we tend to see, which is a subject that keeps coming up, and you guys keep asking me in the office, many times the spouses are invited on these trips. The first response from the revenue authorities is, if the spouse is going on, it is an automatic, and the company is paying for it, it is automatically a taxable benefit to the employee, unless there's a very good reason that for business purpose the spouse is there. And I can see it for high-level discussions, major corporations with major clients and suppliers, where there is a chance to network with the president of a potential client and his or her spouse. That I could see there being a need for the spouse to be there, or to help if it's a professional and she's there or he's there to help his or her spouse organize the time that he's there. I can see that. But generally speaking, the first response is it's a taxable benefit.
And really, the auditors are out there to try and get their money. So they want, if it's a taxable benefit and they can get some money out of it, corporate and or personal, that's what they're going to do.
Absolutely. And if you don't have the backup, and you may have the story right, but if the backup isn't there, they will deny it. And that's, unfortunately, that's what we've been seeing. So that's a little thing for corporate travel, which becomes keep the documentation to prove why you went to places.
I think that's hugely important. Too many people basically just get nailed for not having the right documentation. And when we come back after the next quick break, we'll talk a little bit about Quebec, Ontario. You know, Dan, I'm sure with all the time you spent with elections, people saying, do I leave Quebec? Do I stay in Quebec? Well, let's talk about businesses that kind of exist in both and what entrepreneurs should be aware of.
Joel Ostrov from Vision Travel Solutions and Nick Moraitis, tax partner at Fuller Landau, with us on today's Entrepreneur 753.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:55. Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur. Our guest this evening, Joel Ostrov from Vision Travel Solutions and Nick Moraitis, tax partner at Fuller Landau. Josh, we're talking about business across the border, across the provincial border. Certainly around tax time, it can get a bit complicated.
And certainly when you're operating a business and, you know, the tax rates come into play, and certainly political stability can come into play. So I guess I'd turn to Nick and say, if they have an entrepreneur that really wants to conduct business, you know, Quebec, Ontario, they live here or they live there and they want to do across the border. And I know there's many of other provincial borders, but we'll talk about these for now. What are some of the pitfalls of the minefield that they have to go through and make sure they're reporting properly? Well,
Joel mentioned that, Joel, if I recall, you have 200 employees here in Quebec and about 400 around the country. And they have various offices. So that's the first thing that all provinces look at, is how can they, what business do they tax in their jurisdiction? And the first thing they tend to look at is, where is a business operating from? Where is its fixed place of business? Where is its office, if it's its plant? Where is its warehouse? And the minute a business, whether it's an incorporation or a non-incorporation, has this office in a given province, well, that province will have the right to tax the profits being generated by that office.
Doesn't matter if it's rented or owned, or
doesn't matter if it's rented or owned. What it matters is that that there is a conduct of business out of that office, and we can have a whole show as to determine where is that gray line sometimes as to what is or isn't. If you have an employee, say, who is a salesperson working out of his home in the Yukon, for example, is that constitute an office so that you're taxable in the Yukon? Probably not, but it could be, depending upon what he does. If you have land, if you purchase land, say, in the Yukon, because you were going to do something one day, well, that automatically makes you have an office in the Yukon, in which you have to then turn around and identify the profits. So here we have all these provinces and territories looking at, oh, look at this business. I'm thinking of Vision with your 15 offices.
Right.
How are we going to tax this beast that's called Vision? Obviously, we make it simpler for them when we create multiple corporations. So we can have a company here in Quebec and just operate in Quebec. We can have a company in Ontario that just operates in Ontario. And everything that's identified to those provinces will file our tax returns and everybody's happy. But what if you have offices in other provinces that you do not have an incorporated entity in those other provinces? Well, that's where there is rules that kick in, and they're federal rules that basically start looking at, well, how are you, where's your salaries and where's your sales? And provinces have agreed to do a percentage or some averaging of sales and salary to allocate their profits. And this is where tax planning comes in. Because if you allow the percentages to apply, or should you go out and incorporate?
That's, Nick, as you said, it can be a whole show just on that alone.
It should. You should invite me back.
We should invite you back when we have nice guests just like Joel. Anyhow, as we come up to the end of the show, we'll, as we do with every entrepreneur that has been through such great experiences, we turn to our guest. And Joel, maybe you can let us know what would be your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur.
The one piece of advice I would have comes from something I read years ago in an article published by the Harvard School of Business. They had a guest speaker, Trammell Crow, a Texas billionaire, who made a speech to the graduating class, and he was asked, what is the ultimate reason you were so successful? And he answered, love. He says, you have to have a vision. You have to care passionately about what you do and the people you do it with. You just got to love what you do.
And Dan, I think that says it all.
Perfect. Joel Ostrov of Vision Travel Solutions. Thanks so much for stopping by, Joel.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And Josh will be here back next Monday night at 7 p.m. and we'll be talking lingerie.
Blush Lingerie will be our guest on the show.
Sounds good. The Exchange with Mike Ward is next. It's 8 o'clock.